All right, everyone. Hey, how's it going? We're trying some things that are a little bit different today. What's up, Alex?
Trying some new stuff, breaking everything.
Breaking everything. One thing, guys, because this is new to us, we're completely foreign. Please let us know if you can hear us in the chat, if we can see us, if everything's looking good. If it's not, tell us we suck. Perfection's the enemy of progress, is what I always say. So, why not? Let's see what we're doing.
Yeah, and let us know that you have access to both chat and to Q&A in the event that you need anything as we work our way through it.
This is Kyle's first time hitting go on a webinar. I'll be quite honest. I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
I see some thumbs up floating around, so that must mean everything's okay.
I like it. I like it. So, what are we talking about today, Alex?
This is one of those days where you and I have had 3 webinars up to this point, and it's time to kind of pull everything together, summarize the conversations we've been having, and then talk about how to actually apply some of it in our MSP. As we were talking through customer success and account management and CIO, the question kept coming up: too many people wear that one hat, or too many MSPs that all those hats land on one head. I guess is the right way to say it. And how do we juggle that? How do we make that work? And at what point do we grow out of some of that? So we wanted to talk through a lot of that and figure out. And look, Kyle's got fancy buttons, so he can put me up here and show all my Star Wars toys. In honor of May the 4th, I've ordered new toys. But we really wanted to be able to tell MSPs how, as you mature, these things can change. And I think that's the really important thing that we're hoping to aim for today.
Yeah, I definitely resonated with me because a couple of even my clients, Alex, they called me, frantically, well, how do I do this VCIO thing? The way you're telling us how to do it, I can't figure out how to scale into it, right? There's a lot of not only insecurities, but now there's also this, oh shit, there's more that I need to do in my MSP, and I just want to get new customers in the door.
Yeah. Yep. And
So
and depending on your size, you can delegate some of that, and depending on your size, you own most of that. So
right, exactly, right. And there's a lot of I think healthiness in the inconsistencies that we have, or in some of those insecurities, because we never think of our MSP sometimes as that evolving business model. And how do I and when do I figure out that in those next phases?
well, I think the good point is, if you're here and you're thinking about it, even if you're frustrated, the best part is you've taken the first step, which is realizing that these are things that need to happen. So let's take it one step at a time. These are things that need to happen. These are problems we need to solve for. You can't get anywhere until you take the first step. And the first step is, how does this apply to me? What can I start to build out in my business? Do you want to jump right into the maturity model conversation and kind of talk through some of that? How do you want to approach this?
Yeah, let's jump into it, because I think if you missed the last two, I guess just as a real quick, they are all on YouTube. These are all going to be recorded on YouTube, and they're also going to be on LinkedIn. So if you need any of the recordings, guys, we're not withholding any of this stuff. We are literally doing this just as education. Alex and I have been doing this for so long. At this point, we figured it was time to start recording these things and start getting these conversations that we have all the time, one on one or with each other. And we wanted the ability, just long term, right? Always have these resources, almost like an Illuminati type thing, right? Let's find a way to evolve the industry. So
Yeah.
I think we can kind of jump into that.
So Kyle, they're telling me I have an echo when I talk, so I got to get on that. And Cal's asking for the YouTube link in chat. But let me see if I can figure out this audio real fast while folks are willing to give me a minute. An echo when I talk. What would cause that?
So the anonymous attendee, let us know, thumbs up if the echo's gone. But I think if it,
Yeah.
hopefully it's dissipated.
Let me know if you still get that. I just tried something over here.
It might be one of those things where we need headphones, finally.
Hopefully that's better for everybody. I don't see anybody talking in chat, so I'm wondering if that is actually turned off for everybody.
Oh, I think it might be. Attendees can chat with everyone. Man, here we go. Kyle's, guys,
We got a
perfection's
rookie.
the enemy of progress. I did not know what I was doing.
Guys, this is in true life cycle insights fashion. I'm going to say participation. This is considered participation, non interruption. So if you ever can't chat with us, assume that we screwed up. That's always a safe guess, and we'll fix it for you. Perfect.
So here we go. We're going forward. We are live, and it said still echo. There we go. Man, I don't know what's going on with the echo. We'll have to
Me
figure
neither.
that out.
That's
You
not
know,
good.
the
I have.
echoes not good.
I don't even know where to fix that.
It's your feedback. It might be on my side. We might have done this completely wrong. We might be babbling idiots. Let me see
Well,
if I can.
that is a possibility. Um, oh, some folks are saying no echo, but it sounds fine. It's pretty mild. Well, um, the echo's not bad at all. All right. Well, that's we're just gonna have to run with it then.
Yeah, let's run with it.
All righty. So,
Alex's
and then
booming voice.
what
So,
we've learned is that
anywho,
we're gonna have to figure out some technology before we try it next time.
I think that's the whole idea. But beyond that, we also do have this recorded, so it won't have the echo on the recording. So that'll be on YouTube for those of you that were probably annoying the hell out of you. So again, thank you guys for bearing with us. You're fantastic. I all owe you a beer at the next conference. You can
It
quote me
reminds
on
me
that.
of my favorite meme, which is the most interesting man alive holding his Dos Equis beer, and it says, "I don't always test my code, but when I do, I test it in production." So, coming from a software house, we appreciate that over here. So, good deal.
All right. So I got some people saying no echo now, so I might have clicked the right button. So, anywho, going into this, Alex, sliding into client management, I think we purposefully did this a little bit because we want to understand, right, guys, is how do we evolve our MSPs over time? And time can be many constraints, right? Revenue, it can be linear and calendars, right? How do we make it to where we can easily have this all go forward in a productive way? But to kind of get it going, Alex, just want to do a little quick intro. Who the hell are you?
Yeah, I just take for granted that all these folks are here who have been listening to us for weeks and weeks. But so my name's Alex Farling. I'm the co-founder of Lifecycle Insights. I had an MSP just like you guys for 16 and a half years. If you haven't been watching the news, we were recently acquired. So I have my fancy ScalePad shirt on. So we are now a part of the ScalePad family. But myself, all of my co-founders, still here and charging away on the same mission, which is simplifying that account management and VCIO process, making sure that MSPs gain the appropriate amount of efficiency on that side of their business.
Fantastic. And for people that don't me, my name's Kyle Christensen. I'm the founder of K7 Leadership and some MSP consulting firms as well that dabbled in the PSA realm. Also was a turnaround guy for MSPs in the last 20 years, where I was able to actually triple the size of them in very short time spans in my nerdiness of just loving business strategy, and also being the LinkedIn annoyer that I can be. So I think we should do a little bit of a recap, Alex. I think that might be healthy to really go into, hey, what did we define are the three critical seats in a revenue MSP based or sales based MSP?
Yeah, so on the sales side of the MSP, we're really looking at separating out the parts of the business that actually drive and generate revenue. We talked about account management, right? This is the basic. This is the 1.0 function. It's making sure our customer still loves us. We're making sure that we're in alignment with their best practice. They are in our alignment, are in alignment with our best practices. Man, words are hard. And that this human probably carries a little bit of a quota to make sure that we sell them on renewals, sell them on upgrades, manage those kind of processes. Then we stepped into customer success manager, right? This is a retention position. This is making sure we have no unexpected churn from our clients. Churn's not always possible to avoid, but we want to see it coming a long ways away. We want to understand what's going on there. We want to make sure that our clients are having an amazing experience. And sometimes this person even is that buffer between the client and customer and service delivery to make sure that we're meeting all of our expectations there. But this is the person who really owns that customer satisfaction, client retention function. And they're probably compensated somewhat on percentage of client retention. And then we got into VCIO. We talked about how everybody's doing VCIO wrong in this world today. And then we really talked about how this is a function that you should be billing for, that you should be charging for, that we should not be including at an all-you-can-eat seat price, which is kind of the thing that's been rammed down MSP's throats for so long. So we kind of unpacked that one and talked about how it should be a billable service, a budgetable service, and that it should be a fairly easy one for us to use to grow revenue, because as we start to make recommendations to our customers, a lot of that is going to organically turn into revenue generation opportunities, sales opportunities, things like that. But that this person should not be incentivized or bonused on quotas and quota carrying functions. So.
And I think we should probably preface with a lot of the conversation that we're going to be having today, everybody, is really going to be geared towards those first two seats, where we are really going to be talking a lot about the account management and client success management functions heavily, because I think we've beaten it to death at this point. VCIO is a utilized based role. It is a billable role. And while, yes, I know that's different from a lot of what you guys have probably heard in the past, it is something that we just have to kind of drill in that there's, and go watch the video if you need a refresher, that it is something that we just possibly cannot build into a business strategy model that evolves by having them be quota carrying, right? If they are revenue generating at the core of what they do. So a lot of what we're going to go into today is that. Now, just some quick recap on what those KPIs look like, right? As you can see, account managers have those things like quota, the alignment percentage to your stack and your products, that LTV, making sure that your client's average payment is going up and up and up as you grow. Also making sure that those average MRRs are going up, right? As we go on through time, we got to make sure that we have more costs, which means our clients need to pay for that maturity and cost. And then last but not least, that win rate does start to go up to have a value of how good our account managers are managing their clients and they're presenting them things that they actually want to buy. Customer success, right? We want to look at that churn percentage. This is one of the things that I see in my clients the most as they scale, that they start to take their eyeballs off of because they think that they have no or very low churn. But as you look at it month over month and an 18-month roadmap, you find really fast that starts to go out of control. And then all of a sudden your sales teams, your new logo and your account managers have to work harder and harder and harder. I actually have a YouTube video I'm going to be posting probably in the next couple weeks where I'm going to actually show you guys the math on how sometimes you can never dig yourselves out of the hole when you start to sell your clients nothing but add-ons and never add new MSP logos, or I should say MSP agreements, to your portfolios. You will never be able to get to world-class margins. So we need to keep that in mind. So keep an eye out for that. Agreement gross profit, right? We want to make sure the right clients are staying on board. And as we grow and scale and add better talent to our teams, that we are managing that margin. And then referrals, right? It's an easy way to get net new clients. And then real quick for VCIO, right? Utilization's in there because they should be billable and they should have targets to service their clients at a very high level. They should be doing some type of an audit. Budgeting should be submitted with their clients, right? They're sitting on the boards. They're sitting on the C-suites with your clients. They're delivering those QBRs, which really are just roadmaps and working towards the maturity of your client's technology stack, and then reducing their footprint and risk, which is probably something that we should get to and do a deeper dive at some point. I think we could probably bring on someone like Wes to talk about what that risk analysis would look like.
Yeah, we should drag him and make him come out here and start helping us have that conversation. For anybody who wants to follow this on YouTube, sorry, I threw the LinkedIn link out there. This is streaming live from Kyle's LinkedIn page. Kyle, I don't know if you have a YouTube link that this will stream to as well.
We'll do a newsletter at the end and we'll send all the links out. I'll have to pull it up. If you go to my website, I think they're all there. Let me type it in the chat real quick. Man, we are just having interaction like crazy. I love it.
This should be your one of those buttons on your fancy stream deck. Like, hey,
probably, right? I can do fancy noises and everything, right? Like, yay! I finally sent it.
That's fun. Yeah, they finally got their act together. That's what I heard. Yeah.
All right. So let's get to some new stuff. So one of the things, let's get the right buttons. Right. It's figuring out the right time. So for you guys that are in any leadership role in your organization or owners of MSPs, right, figuring out the right time becomes one of the hardest things because you are doing so much, right? Those early days, Alex, I don't know if you remember, and I remember being in a garage at my MSP. I wore every single hat.
Yeah.
Right. And being able to have that clarity moment to go, oh shit, I need to hire somebody. It never really passed my mind. Like it took someone to look me dead in the eye in one of my peer groups and say, Kyle, pull your head out of your ass. You need to hire somebody.
You know, my conversation was a little different. I had hired quite a few people by then. But somebody sat me down and said, you know, there's no ego hit to hiring somebody who you pay more than yourself.
Well, or you know,
like
I think
a huge ego hit, but then when we started to tear apart the math problem, it is when you hire this person, you know, they bill at an incredibly high rate. They help solve so many other things in the business, and before you know it, you get a pay raise because you hired somebody who makes more money than you.
But there's also the whole, I think, level in the conversation here is there is a point to where you realize as a business owner or a professional that you're not good at everything. And I
Yeah.
think there's this common misconception that an entrepreneur needs to be good at everything or a leader needs to be good at everything. And that ends up being what holds us back the most. That's what actually makes us be a bottleneck. I can't tell you every single one of my clients, I have to have the conversation with them that, hey guys, we can't operate at this level. You need to hire somebody that is good at what you suck at. Right. And Jim Collins even differentiates that level 3 to level 5 leader, that the level 5 guy ends up being the dumbest. Right. He's the owner or founder or CEO of a $30 billion company, yet he's the dumbest on his C-suite.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the genius with 1 million followers, right? And that's who we all kind of start as. And we're hiring really entry level folks. As you grow, hopefully you're surrounding yourself with smarter people than you. You have to grow out of, and you use the word bottleneck, you have to grow out of the problem where the bottleneck exists exactly at the top of the bottle in every organization, right? And that is, if you set up an org chart, like you know exactly where to find the bottleneck. It's right at the CEO. So sometimes it's hard, but you have to hire people, then you have to empower them to do the work and make the change and really go deliver on the services without you having to be involved, so that you can refrain from being that bottleneck.
Well, and if you think, right, Michael Gerber, the accidental entrepreneur idea, right? A lot of us are coming into this business because we are really good at something, whether you're an account manager on this call, you're a customer success rep on this call, you're an owner on this call, right? You're good at something. So whatever you're not good at, hire that person. And for a lot of us, right, that could be sales. A lot of us are the nerds, right? A lot of us are the techie people that started these businesses, and we need to be cognizant of that.
A lot of the
And
folks that we talk to are the owner, and up until a fairly high level in their business, they're going to be the CIO. They're going to be the most technical human in the place. They got to being the tier 3 guy, or the the smartest guy in the room who solves all the problems everybody else gets stuck on. They graduate into that CIO suite, but they definitely have to hire backwards, because if you're that human, it's a waste of your time and energy, and quite frankly your skill set and your value, to send you out to go make you the sales guy, or to send you out to make you the client success guy, or the account manager, when those are less expensive resources that you're probably not good at and probably don't enjoy doing as much as the things that are more technical and that are more up your alley or in your swim lane.
And that takes a lot of, I think self-actualization. There's a lot of like, hey, I know who I am. For a lot of you guys, I know you like DISC. I know you like Colby. There is a really cool assessment called Strength Finder by a company called Gallup. It's a fantastic tool to understand you as a leader. What are your strengths? So you can find complementary strengths to complement your ability. But I think you said something important in there, and I want to kind of move forward, Alex, which is right, the structure.
Yeah. And I think this plays into the conversation and some of the drawing you were doing the other day, as you were kind of drawing out the MSP fort, right? But this really all drives itself into the revenue side of that fort.
Exactly, right. And this is where I think a lot of us start to make org charts where we just put the title and the current need. We don't think of what are the needs of the organization, and then how do I start to wrap the who owns this function or who owns this job in the organization, and being okay with, hey, I might sit in 3 or 4 of these, right? I might sit in 2 of these, right? As the owner, I might sit in that revenue seat, I might sit in that marketing seat, and I might sit in that customer success seat, but I can't also sit in the development rep seat, or I can't also sit, right? There's a, you recognize that I am the bottleneck. So let's go to the one at the very bottom, or let's go to the one that's most difficult or time consuming for me. Take that hat off and let someone else sit in 1 or 2 of those seats.
Somebody else. Yeah. And this is why I like an accountability chart as opposed to an organizational chart, because it helps remind you that you've put your name in way too many seats. And, at my MSP, I could see that I was struggling to let go of things because my name was all over all the seats. And, I had the technical seats pretty well filled, but my name was filling way too many of the other ones. And, it took a lot for me to step back and really hire that first really, really highly qualified senior account manager to take over and run with account management and customer success and just run that entire department.
Yeah, exactly. I do this with my clients all the time, where this is one of the very first exercises that we do is we map out what their MSP fort looks like. I will do all 47 seats or whatever it is up to at this point that I've built it out with their relevant KPIs. And what you find is, right, service manager sitting in tier 3, the owner is sitting in the finance seat, the AR seat, the sales seat. And it becomes an exercise now of looking at who is wearing the most hats, what problem are we facing. Therefore, that is the hat that needs to be removed because it's outgrown the ability to have a person sit fractionally in it.
Right. And I'd be interested to hear how many folks here have really sat down and drawn up an accountability chart for your MSP to see how many of those seats your name falls in, or your genius with 1,000 followers falls in.
And this is where I think a lot of companies start to fail, right? And that's where they start to feel like, oh, I need another tier 3 guy, or I need another account manager. It's kind of funny, actually. I find a lot of my clients, Alex, they'll have way too many account managers at times, because I think they try to say account manager is sales executive and a customer success rep and SDR and right. And they don't realize that you're hiring people now just to go as taskmasters which eliminates expectations.
Yep.
Because you don't realize that if I hire somebody to sit in 2 seats, they can only achieve 50% of the deliverables of each seat.
That's right.
Right. So how do I actually get to a point to scale this, Alex? And I think that might lead into the next conversation. What is the right point to start hiring these people and start to deviate some of those roles?
Yep.
You want to get into that?
Yeah, let's jump into that, because for each of you, that offer that timing is going to be a little different based on where you are in that journey. It's very much your mileage will vary. There is no right answer for everyone kind of conversation.
No, there's not. And I think before we show the next slide, Alex, I think we should probably preface that with what we're getting into next, guys. It has to meet your business. It has to meet your ability to maintain cash flow. So this is not a best practice in the sense of go do this and be happy and you'll be successful. This is something to where you do need to put a little extra thought into it. We've just happened to get you 60% of the way there.
Yep.
And I think sometimes we treat best practice as doctrine a little too much.
Well, at the end of the day, like I always tell all of our customers, like none of your customers are the federal government. Like you can only spend every dollar once, and you have to make sure that this all aligns with profitability, and that's why we started by talking about KPIs, because ultimately, if everybody's KPI leads toward the company's larger goal and keeps profitability and performance in mind, then we're in a better place. And if it doesn't, then we're probably out in left field somewhere and going to feel like we're struggling all the time.
Exactly. And yeah, it's, but have fun with it, right? Like you don't have to do these things in very logical or logistical orders. You can do them in a way that you can have fun with this. You can change the titles, you can change the milestones. But if you want to think from a strict CFO, CEO perspective, we're going to show it to you. So,
yep. So Excel is your friend.
Excel. Yeah. Well, let's start with real quick understanding the stages. What the life cycle of a revenue department of an MSP looks like, I think, before we get into the how do you budget it. So we created some milestones, didn't we, Alex?
Yeah. And I think this is where we see, working with about 1,000 MSPs today, we see a lot of logical breaks here, and we see folks come to us at a lot of different places in this journey. And it's always interesting to see the correlation. Right? The guys who come to us that are upwards of 10, 25, 50 million, they have not just defined account management and CIO roles, but they're starting to, at 25 and 50 million, they're really growing into full-on customer success departments. Like they have all of this really dialed in, and they have it dialed in because they've started to figure out the KPIs. They've started to understand that if I manage to the numbers, these departments can sustain themselves. And more so, they can feed the rest of the business, right? They generate money that goes back into the rest of the business. And then we see the folks who are a little smaller, who are in the the million, 2 million phase, and everybody's still juggling a lot of hats, and they're still trying to figure out, how do I find 3/4 of a person over here, and how do I find a half a person over here, and how do I split Solomon's baby to fill all these roles that I've got to solve for.
And I think this is where, from my experience, when I got slapped around a little bit, right? Like this is the type of conversation that I wish I had probably had before I even started to build out the business plan. And this is, going back 15, 20 years, because I was never thinking of these things. I was just thinking of, we have problems, we have things we need to do, so let's do them. So let's kind of go through these phases a little bit as a way to kind of start the conversation, Alex.
Yeah.
So let's start in this range, because this is probably the majority of the people that are on this call.
Yeah, I mean, sub a million or sub a million, right? That's what 75% of the MSP space, maybe more. It's
Mm-hmm.
a huge chunk, right? So this is the owner who is this is the owner is still the bottleneck at the top of the bottle. They probably have 4 to 5 employees, maybe six. If we're really inefficient, maybe we're doing a million with 7 employees, but then we're struggling. We feel broke all the time. If I personally attacked anybody with that comment, it wasn't aimed at you. I'm just remembering my past. But this is the thing where, as we start to hire these seats, and I tell our partners all the time, as I started to hand off account management, I realized that, hey, at $1 million, I had enough revenue and enough customers that if my account manager went out and managed them all properly, they actually made me enough money that I could pay for them and then go hire an engineer. So we're getting to the point at $1 million where account management is a thing. Customer success, maybe not yet, right? It's a little early for that. We got to combine some hats still. But the owner is still very much the technical consultant and doing owner-led sales at this point. So we don't have a lot of hats to divvy up here, and most of you are probably wearing all four of those hats at $1 million.
Well, they're probably also service manager, and they're also probably they're doing all their own bookkeeping, or they're trying to, and they're trying to understand it, right?
Or they got some girl that
It's
comes in 4 hours a week and tries to patch it all together, right?
Oh, totally, yeah, exactly. And I think the biggest message, and I don't think we're alone in this, Alex, is when before you break that ceiling of that $1 million phase, you just have to sell everything you can. Don't worry about pricing. Don't worry about strategy. Don't worry about any of these things. Just go after anything that you can bring recurring revenue in. Even if
Yep.
you know that the price is too low, do what you can to win those accounts, guys.
Right.
Literally, do not take your foot off that gas, because at every one of these stages that we're going to show you, you're going to be churning clients and you're going to be increasing your pricing.
Yeah.
So don't think
Well,
that you need to get it right in these first few stages.
and Brian's talking about the difference with outsourced help desks and things like that. But when you look at an outsourced help desk, that is an employee, right? You're paying them a portion of revenue that would have gone to payroll if they didn't exist. So if I'm $1 million MSP but I outsource my help desk, I probably only have 2 employees because
Mm-hmm.
I'm paying $400,000 a year to some outsourced help desk, or $500,000 a year to some outsourced help desk, or
Yeah, you're
something.
simply reducing your costs. You're not changing your strategy, your business model. And I see that he mentioned something about co-managed and VAR-focused MSPs. When you get to the upper tiers, they're all co-managed and VAR included, right? There's no way to get past the $25 million ceiling without having other lines of services. And I think
Yep.
what becomes important, though, is sometimes we try to do all those things too fast, because at the core, and this is going to be hard to hear, you suck at selling new contracts. You haven't spent the time to either delegate or mature your current revenue process. So what do? We just throw our hands up and we go, "Oh shit, I can't sell any more new logos." So it's not that I'm the problem; it's that the market's the problem. So I'm going to just try to sell more add-ons.
Sorry, Jennifer, didn't mean to strike too close to home there. But yeah, and I literally am just finishing up my slides for MSP GeekCon, where I'm giving a talk on the transition from a technical job to sales, and how there's actually a lot of correlation there. There's actually a lot that's the same in those jobs. But just like a technical job, if you only did it 12 times a year, you wouldn't be any good at it. And as a small MSP at $1 million or even $2 million, how many at bats do you get with new prospects every year? 6, 8, 10, 12. At none of those levels are you at the top of your game. You're not an expert, right? You're at best rusty. If I ask you to go deprovision an Exchange server 6 times a year, do you think you'd be good at it? You'd be back to the manual every single freaking time. You'd be, out on your Google foo would be your saving grace. Unfortunately, when we're sitting in front of a customer and selling something to them, I can't just go Google it. And so this is where we have to fall back to experience, training, practice, process. And so that's one of the things that I'm actually going to talk about at MSP GeekCon, because I think there's a lot of folks at these smaller MSPs who wear too many of those hats and are a technical human who's still saddled with some sales at that level.
It's funny too, right? Because I'm teaching MSP engineers on how to read a P&L. right?
Yeah.
There's that same logic that we need to expand a little bit of our blinders, right, into how to operate on an MSP. And I think that goes great into those next couple tiers, Alex,
Sorry, I'm
right?
showing my age, Jennifer. I am not chat GPTing my sales answers either, though. So, um,
So
I
getting
think
into it, right? It's at that $2-3 million phase that we start to really see two different bottlenecks happen, right? The first is that the owner needs reinforcements. He simply has too many accounts to manage, right? You've doubled your revenue, and right, it kind of happens in between 1 and 2 million, where you recognize that, hey, now we have 15, 20 clients with managed services. I need someone to at least keep a finger on the pulse. And sometimes you let the service manager do it, right? They might stumble and you have a churn problem. Sometimes you'll let, a finance person do it, or you'll hire account managers. But where it's really successful is when you bring on that full-time body to just talk to your clients.
well, because if you really think about it, at $2 or $3 million, if you haven't been good about pruning the $1,500, $2,000, $2,500 accounts, if you've used those to build your way to 2 million, you've got 75 accounts, 100 accounts, or something ridiculous like that between $2 and $3 million. There's no way you could possibly deliver a quarterly or even semi-annual strategic conversation to all of those humans to guide them down the path. Right? The math just doesn't work. One human couldn't do that and still be the CEO or the salesperson or wear any of the other hats. That is a dedicated full-time responsibility when you get to that size.
And we have to keep that in mind, right? Because that tells you right there that at 2 million, if I needed to hire an account manager because I doubled my accounts, then at 4 million, I probably need another one, right? You start to build out how much revenue or how much recurring revenue can my account manager simply manage, right? Because there is a level to where you can't do a QBR every single day of the quarter.
Right. Well, and I think that gets to some of the breaking up of your accounts and saying, hey, this $1,500 a month account doesn't get quarterly business reviews, right? Because that's 4 meetings a year for a person who could do that same level of work for a $10,000 a month account. And so we really have to look at that as we're setting the expectations for these responsibilities. One of the things that we should be looking at for our VCIO or our customer success person, whoever's leading that QBR responsibility, there's only so many meetings they can go to, and every one of those meetings has to be worth $10,000 a year to you, $20,000 a year to you in total revenue.
Mm-hmm. And
so we need to look at that.
Well,
More
and it
so
kind
than
of
how
goes
much
in.
revenue they can manage, it's how many meetings can they go to.
Oh, completely, right? And I think it kind of tees us up into that $3 million tier, because where I see a lot of people struggle to break through that $3 million ceiling, and this might go towards, Brian, your little statement that you have about kind of loving co-manage, is what ends up happening is you have so much account management that that what ends up happening, and I see this all the time, they forget that they need to sell new MRR. They need to get new logos in the door. And right, because you get so focused on add-ons and LTV and MRR and increases and renewals and your stack, and you're trying to do all this maturity that you forget, oh shit, I need to sell new customers, right? I need new logos in the door.
And that's why we handed account management off first at my MSP, right? It was the first thing that I was able to say, I can remove this. I'm better at sales than most tech people, so I'll go be the sales guy. And I was able to hand off account management. And it actually worked really well. I have nothing but good things to say. We did it at about the $1 million mark. It worked really, really well. And the cool thing that I saw happen was my account manager went out and had success, got referrals, and actually went out and closed referrals. And when I sold my MSP, there were customers that years later I had never met.
Well, and right, that's what
actually got them as a referral, closed the new line of business, and continued to care for that account as an account manager. And I never had to talk to them.
And Alex, it's this stage right here, right? It's this getting past 3 million to where someone needs to focus on bringing in new clients. So a lot of times it's this $3 million stage where you start to see SDRs, you start to see sales executives, right? And you're going to stumble, you're going to fail. They're going to bring in bad accounts. They're going to sign bad agreements. But the number one thing, guys, that this is going to bring through the door, especially for that you'll probably at some point run into, Brian, is you need at bats. Bringing in new logos is a numbers game. And when we are as outsourced IT providers, right, there is a finite number of users that a small business can have for us to reasonably support them. So what we really have to focus on is this is where target market refinement to use a sales and marketing term, becomes so damn critical. Because whether you're niched or whether you have a target size of client, you have to realize that in all of our markets, there is a finite number of at-bats you will get with that target market. So when you're in that $3 million stage, you may not have the marketing budget. You may not have the sales budget in order to try to get past this ceiling, because maybe you are too picky with the clients that are coming in because of some of the past that you have encountered where, hey, we sucked at doing help desk. We sucked at maturing. We sucked at onboarding new users for small clients because they're just too needy. Well, there is a point where the big MSPs, and I work with them a lot, guys, they start to relax on what they sell because they realize that their sales team just needs as much opportunities as they can get. That's the only way they can be successful. And that's honestly, if you think about it, right, in that less than $1 million stage, that was the same hustle that you had to grow your MSP. You didn't care what the business was as long as you're going to pay me money.
But as I can't be in front of all those folks anymore, now it's the time that I go add that sales executive, right? This is when we add back that sales position and we actually put somebody in there whose job is to do this full time. And I'm working with some MSPs today who said, we'll hire the first one, we'll dial in the process. And as we get them trained and right, you know what? We know if we get them in front of X number of clients a month, they'll close this percentage of their business, and this turns into a math problem. And that will result in this much new revenue. And if everything works out, we do it once, then we hire the next person. And as soon as they get up to speed, we hire the next person. And as soon as they get up to speed, we hire the next person. And this becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because we know one account executive is going to sit in front of 20 folks a month, and they're going to, they're going to take 6 of them to presentation, and they're going to close 2 of those, or whatever your numbers are. Your numbers will be pretty repeatable over time. A lot of that has to do with your pricing. A lot of that has to do with your marketing, how you continue to bring the same kind of prospects to the table every time. But you'll find that you have a very repeatable number of a very repeatable close ratio. And you back that out to say, hey, if I close 33% of my deals, then this is how many I have to get in front of, with a larger presentation. This is how many I have to get in front of just to do an intro. This is how many prospects I have to call to get to that many to work our way back down that math problem.
And Alex, I think you said something important there, which is close ratio, right? The goal of what we're talking about really today is growing the top line. Right. We're not here to talk about lowering our costs and growing the gross margin, because as a sales team, right, my number one goal is to increase revenue. It is not to increase margin, right? Yeah, I can make the pricing higher, but at the end of the day, the only way I can truly increase revenue is to sell more deals. That's it.
And at the end
There's
of the
no
day,
secret recipe to that.
And at the end of the day, as a sales guy, unless I own the company, I don't have any control over my pricing. Right? That is handed to me by someone who understands the margin and knows what it's going to take to manage the margin. So your sales team should not handle the margin. They should have no impact on price. They don't get to have that discussion. You tell them what the price is going to be, and they go sell it. That's how.
And I think that's what goes into the next tier, right? For us that are in that kind of that $5 million bracket, right? And I kind of wrote in here, tongue in cheek, right? The owner has too many problems. It's because the MSPs I see break through that $5 million ceiling is when the owner truly starts to step out of the revenue department. He realizes that it becomes, or she realizes that it becomes too emotional, right? You're too emotionally attached to your customers. But to get past that $5 million ceiling, you really have to remove the connection to good business and bad business, right? It just needs to be business, period.
You said that to me when we were spitballing and building this, and I wanted to argue with you about that. And I went, you're about to argue with him about that comment because you're still too emotionally attached to some of the clients you had at your MSP 3 years ago. So that is so spot on. When you said it, I went, I can't even argue with that. Like that is, and I needed to hear those words 5 years ago. But hearing those, hopefully they do the value to somebody else that they did to me right now as I kind of hear that, because it's true. Like the hardest calls I ever had to make at my MSP were, hey, Mr. Customer who's been paying me for 16 years, I'm selling my company and I'm not going to be your guy anymore. And that was proof to me that you were spot on, that I was too emotional. I was too attached to some of those early on customers. And as a sales guy, that's a bad place to be. It does put you at a disadvantage.
Well, and sometimes you have to be able to walk away from deals, right? Anytime you see the discounts or clients I get into where their agreements are all out of whack, I can tell you right now, they have unique agreements with handshake deals all over the place, because you as the entrepreneur your business has scaled beyond your ability to say no and walk away, right? That habit you built in that $0 to $2 million phase is the same habit that will break your company and keep you from growing. So
Yep.
you almost have to relearn how to walk at this stage.
Yep. True story. I want to address Jennifer's comment because Jennifer said we have a lot of luck with the technical account manager role. Curious as to how, as to your thoughts on enabling the tech team with sales opportunities. I always find it interesting. We did it. We were reasonably successful with it. I actually, one of my account managers came from the technical side as we grew. We brought out a technician who had kind of just stopped growing as an engineer, but he was great with people and everybody loved him. The wrong technician will fail as a technical account manager. They will go in all speeds and feeds, all nerd words, and not help the customer understand the business impact of the technology change that they're asking them to make. So I won't say that it is not successful. I will say that at more mature organizations, they will backfill salespeople that deliver at the business level, and they'll have the business conversation and support them with a technical sales engineer or support a technical rep to support them. But especially in some of these mid phases, $2-3 million, I like the TAM role. I like it a lot. It's part of why I built Lifecycle Insights to put kind of guardrails up for my technical guy to not let him get down in the ditch and talk about hey, we need to buy a new computer because we don't have enough GBs and we need more SSD and all the things that the customer doesn't care about. So we built the tool literally to put up the guardrails so that a technical account manager could succeed. So I'm a firm believer in it. I do think that at some point, and especially with larger accounts, to Brian's point earlier, you'll outgrow that and you'll need someone who owns the relationship and someone who can come in and be a sales engineer to support that.
And it's funny, right? And Alex, I think that's kind of where you and I were going, right? When we did this, right? Ops kind of owns the TAM type thing down here, was really because at that stage, we're still not mature enough for VCIO as an actual service offering, because we need to get really good at selling MSP agreements before you go to the next stage. But also understanding that it is on the horizon, right? Once we get good at selling MSP agreements and we can support these clients well, then let's open up those guardrails for VCIO. But for right now, your account managers and operations should be able to cleanly be able to offer those QBR services to your clients just to get them what they need until your clients or you bring on a mature enough client to pay for VCIO services.
It has to do CMMC or NIST or some higher level of compliance. And if you're bringing on that client at $2 or $3 million, understand you may have to outsource your VCIO, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. Like I said, it's hard to buy a fraction of a human. So,
and there's a lot of technical consultants out there that are really smart, but frankly, as we went over in the last call, you probably can't afford them right now. Yep. And that's hard to hear, right? Because we would love to hire a $160,000 nerd for our companies. Yep. Or a lot of times us as owners are the $160,000 nerd, right? That could do it. So we think, we can just do it. But how do you operate your company under a level of accountability to your business plan?
Yeah. Andrew Lee, tips for a brand new technical account manager at an MSP, send them to Lifecycle Insights Bootcamp. There's my plug. But seriously, if you want to have that conversation, ping me on LinkedIn. We have an entire curriculum for those folks that we teach them how to wrap their head around some of this.
So here's a thought, Alex. And this was what I did at my MSP. My tier 3 guys were our TAMs. Because to me, the difference between a tier 2 and a tier 1 guy, and maybe this is good for the technical people on the call, is tier 2 to me, they fix everything. Mm-hmm. Tier 3, that's the guy when the whole building is burning down can walk into the CFO's office and say, hey, we've got a problem right now. Don't worry, we got everything covered. Here's 2 things that we're going to need from you to get this done. First, that quote you've been sitting on for the last 3 months, I need you to sign it because I need to get this thing ordered ASAP in order to get you back up and running. Number 2, right? We need everyone in the office to do X, Y, or Z. And you need to be able to do it calm, professionally. And I don't care how much the CFO screams at my tier 3, right? He was the professional to go, I get it. You're upset at the situation. We're here to help you.
Yeah. I think not every MSP is built that way. Yep. It's great if you can build that way. My tier 3 guy, we didn't let him talk to humans. So, it's a different
and
world.
That's normally what I see, right? Is, it's an expensive resource that can't talk to my customers.
But I was the weird guy. You have to think about where I came at it from. I was a sales guy who was actually a pretty mediocre engineer. I wasn't the smartest technical resource in my building. But I was happy playing meat shield and standing in front of that customer who's losing their ever-loving mind and going, don't talk to Dave. Dave's fixing something important right now. I'm going to tell you what you need to know. This is what I need from you. How can we manage that relationship, right? And I did it from an account management and sales perspective, but I filled that same goal, that same role with a guy who was absolutely brilliant, but maybe a little on the spectrum, but absolutely brilliant, but not the guy you want in front of people. So it's in a world where I'm just going to say this: in a world where people are hard to find, don't hesitate to move this around a little bit and shuffle it and find the way that works for you. Kyle and Alex don't have all the right answers. We don't know
No.
your people intimately. We don't know their skill sets and their powers. Every one
And
of them has
nobody
its
does.
power. Yeah.
Unless
It's
they
your
are
job.
an intimate coach and they are up in everything in your business, best practice is just a guesstimate.
Yep. But I'm loving hearing how different folks are mixing in TAMs and where their level threes live. Level threes are the best at selling on their teams. They think outside the box more often. So all of that's really interesting to see how different folks fit into these.
And also,
different
Alex, you gave me an idea for my next graphic for our next webinar in 2 weeks, where you are literally going to be the meat shield that I'm holding up.
It's a thing. It's a thing. Yeah.
But should we show the math?
Yeah, look, our Lifecycle Insights CEO is literally a math teacher, so we're not going to teach it to you in Common Core. Kyle and I are not those people, but we got to talk through the math problem, because that's ultimately that's what sales is. That's what budgeting is. That's what running a business is. And
Budgeting.
a lot
Who
of
would
the
have
things
known?
that Kyle's right, but a lot of the things that you're talking about go back to how do we run a business and how do we deliver all of this as a business owner. And to Brian's point, numbers don't lie. We can only hire each job once. We can only pay each person once. And at some point we have to go add headcount to fix all of this. So yeah, let's go do the math problem.
So, what you guys are going to see is a lot of numbers. So let me walk you through a little bit on how this is going to work. And if any of you guys want this, I'll send it to you. This isn't anything that we're gatekeeping. So what we have here is all of our stages that we've kind of already gone through, right? We've got our 1 million all the way to our $100 million MSP. So in each of these, we have a basic P&L, which is we have our costs, which is 45%. Gross margin, I used an industry, oh my God, I wish I could get there, of 55%. We have our sales and marketing budget, which is 10%. And then our general and administrative, which is 30%. So I use very generic numbers. Yes, 30% is a little high for administration, so we could probably have a better aspect of here. And yes, gross margin's a little high. But at the end of the day, what is not high is 10% of your revenue should always go to sales and marketing. You should never take your foot off the gas on that 10%, and you're going to see why. So what you see here is that at 10%, right, easy math, you see each of these tiers pop up. So going into the next level, I've brought all of those numbers down to where we can figure out, what do I do with this 10% at each of these yearly revenue milestones? Mm-hmm. And simply put, we are now able to say, well, what if I hired this guy at this tier and these guys at this tier? So I've used some very basic salaries, and they may be higher or lower based off of your geographic location. And then what these are at a 25% fully burdened rate. So for those of you that don't know what fully burdened is when you start to add things like PTO, you add sick time, you add benefits packages, you own your help me out here, taxes, your unemployment, all of those things.
Right.
So that is normally 25% is like a national average. So using some of these stages that we had up here, right? Your first AM at 2 million, your first sales rep at 3 million.
Let's go back first and just look at the where this starts at $1 million, right? We have a $100,000 sales budget. I want to call out a problem that happens to most MSPs who get to $1 million and go, it's time to hire a sales guy. I don't want to do this anymore. And this is your first what not to do. And I won't say very many things strictly, or don't ever effing do this. Don't ever effing do this. Do not go try and hire a salesperson who you think is a self-starter, who you think can create a sales program in your organization. That is a hell no. You will always fail. There are not a lot of this goes in the line with death and taxes. You will always fail. That human does not exist. You're looking for a unicorn. A good sales closer is not the same human that can run a sales department, that can manage salespeople, that can herd the cats. So
just like your tier 2 or tier 3 guy should not be your service manager.
Exactly. So this is one of those things where it's easy to fall into the trap of going, well, if I just paid another $10,000, could I find the right guy? If I just bump the salary a little, could I get that? Human does not exist. You cannot outsource meeting your expectations or aligning your expectations. That is something that you, as the leader of the organization, have to do. You have to learn to manage a sales team, and that's what these three previous webinars were about. Like, how do we manage this revenue ops thing so that we know what good KPIs are, so that we know how to hold these people accountable, so that we can catch them failing early and make adjustments or make replacements, so that we don't go out and try and just hire someone and turn this whole thing over and set ourselves up for failure. So that's my minute on the soapbox. I had to get that out because I've seen it too many times. If you go search Reddit for it, there's 100 threads on it already, and I didn't want somebody to go start one more.
Oh, and you know what's even worse? And I'm going to say, let me get my soapbox real quick. These guys are good at selling, so they are going to sell you on them.
Yeah, that's it.
And I've seen it time and time again where the next thing you know is they're the co-founder and they somehow own now 30% of your company because you couldn't afford to pay them and they promise you the world and you have no identity until you really get to about that $2.5 million mark. It is very hard to have an identity or know what you're strong at or what your differentiators are.
Yep. Yep. And Brian says the average salesperson will overpromise, and he's only wrong in that they don't think they're overpromising. They're just largely positive people who can handle rejection, and it takes a very positive human to handle rejection. They go into everything as an optimist and go, "Sure, Mr. Customer, we can do that for you." It's not intentional. They're just too optimistic for their own good. So I'll shut up.
Well, or you don't have enough maturity in your own company for them to be able to work with, like, bowling with bumpers, right? If you are a company where you don't have established agreements, you don't have established product catalog, you don't know who your target market is, of course a sales guy is going to go into a wide open ocean and sell whatever they can because you're telling them to sell things. They made a promise to you and they're just going to use what you got. And if you're not mature enough to figure out what you got, then you kind of got to look in the mirror a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. There we go. Sorry. Soapbox moment's over.
I think we're good at that, though.
Yeah.
So when we get to that $2 million mark, right, that's where, I think a lot of us are going to go, well, Kyle, if you said 10%, what's the $75,000 for other? So this other category, right, we got to think of things like commission. You're going to want to sponsor something. You want to be a part of chamber. You're going to want that sales guy driving around town and put fuel in his tank. Right?
There's some donuts, right?
Yeah, they're going to have to go. This is an account manager. They might be taking your clients out to dinner, right? There's so many things.
More and more we see MSPs buying HubSpot. Like, they're buying expensive tools.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about the tools, right? There's CRMs. You're going to want to list. You're going to want to sponsor an event. Especially if you want to scale, right? We're working in a bubble right now. This is Alex and I saying, if we started an MSP tomorrow, here's how we would scale our sales and marketing teams. 3 million, right? That's where we start to get that first dedicated sales rep in the door. Yep. And you know what? You're probably not going to be mature enough to have commission and have mature commission structure. So you're going to have to overpay for them.
But I want you guys to think as we go across here, every time we put a 1 in a box, you as the owner, if you are the owner, you get to take off a hat. And that's a huge win. Like, every one of these should be aspirational to go achieve that win where I get to take off a hat and give something to somebody else.
This is the beauty of an entrepreneur. You're building a team through your own revenue channels to work yourselves out of a job. Yep.
Every hat is a raise. This is true. Like, every time you take off a hat, you bring in another person, they help you generate more revenue, you get a pay raise. That is a real thing. And you get less stress. You get more time at home. Your life should get more meaningful. But at the end of the day, each one of these is managing 2 KPIs so that we can achieve the growth, so that we can hire the human, that we can manage the KPIs that enables us to achieve growth. That, as we just keep going around in a circle there.
Yep. And right, going from that $3 million to $5 million range, what's going to be noticed, and I thought this was interesting, Alex, right? We doubled the number of people, but we only about 30%, 28% of the revenue, which left us with the same amount of budget, which actually goes down a little bit. And I think this is where MSPs start to struggle. And this is why that $5 million glass ceiling is so tough, because you really are trying to build economy of scale.
Yep.
And it's not till 5 million that I see economy of scale.
Right. I was going to say, it gets really expensive, especially the first time you have to add that first layer of middle management in there, right? As soon as we need that sales manager, that now we're hiring really expensive people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But you can't manage a team of 6 without 1 or 7. You get to a point where you have to have them. A good rule of thumb: no human can manage more than 5 or 6 people. You just can't do it well.
And right, that's what's funny is you mentioned 5 or 6 people. Well, it's at that $10 million range that we're probably bringing on a marketing rep, which means that we're now in that 7 people, which means we're probably going to need a sales manager.
Yep.
So as you guys can see, though, because of how economy of scale works, it's not a direct doubling. So because it's not a direct doubling, we're able to add people, but also now start to increase our sales and marketing budget, right? Tools aside, because at this point they're matured. We have a funnel, we have a close process. I don't need the HubSpot consultant anymore. So now I'm at a point where this extra almost 30 grand we have in here, that should be direct, pure outbound marketing, right? That's all of your efforts to, or I guess some is inbound too with ads and webinars and content. Especially in this day and world, if any of you don't know, account-based marketing and social selling, that's where a lot of the MSPs that are starting to scale fast are growing.
Yep.
Right? It's knowing your target market so much that I can be very effective with that $30,000.
Yep.
Just don't be afraid to spend it. To me, I want this 100% spent by the end of the year.
I want it spent, but I also am going to hold my account management team as I grow them to a certain number of leads, right? As we go from 100,000 to 75,000 to 18,000 that we have left over for other and marketing and such, we're doing that knowing that our account management team should be meeting on the regular and bringing back to the sales executives warm leads and the opportunity for us to close easy deals. We're building a better name in our market. People know us. We're no longer starting from zero every time we knock on a door.
Yep. So I want to respect everyone's time, Alex, because I think we are getting to the end of the session. We're only about a minute out. So, I thank everybody for attending. We are going to be planning on doing this, guys, every other week. We're just picking random topics. So if there are topics that you guys want to talk about, please hit us up on LinkedIn and just ask. I mean, this whole series started from literally some Reddit comments where someone tagged Alex and I. So we started making this series and we said, you know what? Screw it. It's going to be Kyle and Alex. We're going to be headed towards just all of the knowledge that we have and all of our friends that we've built over the years. We're going to be bringing them in and talking about these things. Yeah. We might even have a little taster of possibly some in-between session conversations that we bring in a potential possible community.
Yeah, Brian threw us some really great questions there too. So there's a lot here that we can carry on and continue to work with. So Brian, we see those. We're out of time today, but definitely good content that we want to talk about. I have a lot of opinions, especially on the how do I get my sales team to feel like they need me less. That goes right back into this budget conversation. And Kyle and I might bring up that slide later this week and talk through it and record a video for that one because I think it is super important. But thanks everybody for coming. We'll again, in respecting your time, we don't want to keep you too long. So Kyle,
and one thing, guys, if you could, that helps Alex and I a ton since we're doing this just out of our own time and our own investments. Please reshare. Please tell your friends, tell people in your peer groups that we're doing this. The more people in attendance gives the ability for Alex and I to justify more of our own investment into doing these types of things. So that helps us tremendously. So if you see us posting these on LinkedIn, please repost, post them on Facebook. It just helps us a ton.
Follow us on LinkedIn. Come hang out and share with us. Believe it or not, nowadays I have a boss that I have to beg for time to come do this kind of stuff. So yeah, by all means, if we can show them that we're adding some value, like and subscribe, all that good stuff, and we'll keep bringing it to you. We're really enjoying this. I hope, and I'm glad to see the comments. I hope that folks are finding value in it. So
and at some point we'll do operations and finance. I think we're getting a lot of asks for it. We will eventually move out of the sales and into cybersecurity, tech, finance, and ops. So everybody, we appreciate your time. Like we mentioned, we appreciate it. We'll see you all later.
Have a great rest of your day.